So, what if I told you that everything you see is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what's actually there? What if the real world is hiding in plain sight and pretty much all of us are missing it? Okay, let's dive into this. Because honestly, the answer might just change how you see, well, everything. It all boils down to this one single number 1%. That's it. That is the sliver of reality our eyes can actually process. It's an almost unbelievable limitation. And you know what? It frames our entire experience of the world. The source material we're exploring today just puts it so perfectly. We walk around super confident in what our senses are telling us is real. But what if we're missing 99% of the show? It's an illusion, really, that mystics have been talking about for centuries. So let's actually break this down. Let's get into what we're calling the 1% problem. Because this isn't some philosophical thought experiment. It's a hard physical reality based on the actual science of light. Okay, so this right here is the electromagnetic spectrum. It's got everything. We're talking the radio waves that carry your favorite songs, all the way to the X-rays a doctor uses to see your bones. And that tiny little sliver of a rainbow in the middle, yep, that's us. That is our entire visible world. Everything else is just invisible energy pulsing all around us all the time. But here's the thing. If we're limited to that little band of color, what about the rest of the natural world? Well, it turns out a lot of animals are tuned into completely different channels of reality. And this is where it gets really, really cool. I mean, look at this. We see a plain yellow flower, but a bee? A bee sees a glowing ultraviolet landing strip pointing right to the nectar. We might see a dark field. A snake sees the bright red heat signature of its next meal. They are literally actually seeing different worlds built from light that we can't even perceive. And this goes way beyond just what individual animals can see. Think about those incredible, almost psychic-looking moments of coordination you see in nature. How on earth do they do that? Well, it's not magic, it's physics, but it's still pretty mind-blowing. Geese are riding on invisible waves of air pushed up by the bird in front of them. A school of fish moves as one because each fish feels the tiny pressure waves from its neighbors. And whales, they use sound to build a 3D map of a pitch-black ocean. They are all using these powerful, unseen forces to navigate their world. Okay, so animals have all these amazing built-in senses. What about us? We might be a bit limited biologically, but we are fantastic tool builders. We've created some incredible technologies to extend our own senses and peek into these invisible worlds ourselves. Take LiDAR, for instance. It's basically a technology that gives an airplane X-ray vision. It shoots out millions of laser pulses and creates this super detailed 3D map of the ground. And the really cool part is, it can digitally erase things like a dense jungle canopy to show us exactly what's hiding underneath. And what LiDAR found is, it's just staggering. It all comes down to this number, over 60,000. That's how many completely unknown Maya structures were just sitting there, hidden under the jungle in Guatemala. We're talking entire cities, defensive walls, superhighways. This one discovery literally rewrote the history books, changing population estimates from just a few million people to more than 10 million. And of course, we've pointed these new eyes of ours up at the stars. Now, the Hubble telescope, it sees mostly in the same visible light spectrum we do, but the James Webb telescope sees in infrared. It's like having heat vision for the cosmos. It can peer right through these massive clouds of cosmic dust that were totally blocking Hubble's view and see the light from the very first stars being born. It's a completely different universe. So we've looked way out into the jungle and into deep space to see the hidden physical world. But the source material for this explainer makes a fascinating argument that the greatest unseen frontier isn't out there. It's in here. The source uses this really mystical quote to kick off the idea of an inner perception. So what on earth does it mean for the eye to be single? It's a metaphor, right? For a completely different kind of seeing. Now, according to the source, the biological key to this inner world, this different way of seeing, is the pineal gland. It's this tiny pine cone-shaped thing located deep in the center of your brain. And this is where you get two very different stories about the same little gland. Neuroscience looks at it and says, okay, this is a photoreceptor. It senses light and produces melatonin to help you sleep. But mystics have, for centuries, called it the third eye, a kind of gateway to a higher consciousness, or, as the source puts it in modern terms, to the quantum field. The source material goes even further, and it draws some pretty unique symbolic lines. For example, it presents this idea that the whole story of Santa Claus is actually an ancient metaphor for a biological process involving a part of the brain called the claustrum, and it's secreting a special fluid down the spinal cord. And this idea of an internal, sort of spiritual anatomy gets mapped onto other things too. The source suggests that our body's network of nerve centers and our hormone-producing glands, well, they correspond directly to the ancient Eastern system of the 7 chakras. All right, so let's take a breath. What happens when we try to bring these two worlds together, the external, scientific world and this internal, mystical one? The source suggests they might not be so different after all. And here it is, the really bold claim the source is making, that when you get right down to it, quantum scientists and mystics are essentially describing the exact same reality. They're just using different languages to do it. Think about it. The weird, interconnected, non-local universe of quantum physics, it starts to sound a lot like the unified consciousness that mystics have described for thousands of years. Which naturally leads to a pretty wild and provocative question, one that's posed in the language of physics. In quantum mechanics, you have entanglement, where particles are linked no matter how far apart they are. So the source asks, what if we're like that? What if we're entangled with a universal consciousness, with God? And this brings us right back around, full circle to where we started. That 1% limitation, it isn't just about light. The source uses it as this powerful metaphor for our entire existence. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, because of our modern lifestyles, we're only experiencing 1% of the full spectrum of life itself. Which leaves us with one final, pretty profound question to think about. From the signals in nature, to the secrets hidden in the cosmos, to the universe waiting inside our own minds, the source argues that the signs of a deeper, bigger reality are absolutely everywhere. The only question is, do we have the eyes to see them?